It all started with a whisper, not in my ear, but in the quiet, insistent corner of my mind. A tiny, almost imperceptible tremor in the perfect picture I'd carefully painted of my life, of our life. Valentine's Day was just around the corner, and I was buzzing with excitement, planning something truly special for Emily. We'd been together for 5 years, lived together for 3, and I honestly believed she was my future. The ring, a delicate sapphire, was tucked away in my sock drawer, waiting for the right moment on that romantic day. I had it all meticulously planned out. A surprise trip to the Lake District, a secluded cabin with a hot tub, a gourmet meal I'd painstakingly booked weeks in advance, and then the proposal. I could almost see her face, radiant with joy, saying yes. I was so utterly, hopelessly, gloriously in love. That morning, a Tuesday, I woke up early, my mind already running through the checklist for the trip. Emily was still asleep, curled into a ball beside me, looking angelic. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and slipped out of bed to make coffee. As I walked past the living room, my gaze fell on her iPad, lying on the coffee table. It wasn't unusual for it to be there, but something about its screen, faintly lit, caught my eye. A notification, a WhatsApp message. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just a work colleague or one of her endless group chats. But the sender's name, Dan, was unfamiliar. And the preview text, it was just a fragment. Can't wait for next week, my little secret. My heart, which moments before had been soaring with anticipation, plummeted. It wasn't a dramatic drop, more like a slow, heavy descent, filled with a sickening dread. Dan? Little secret? My mind raced, trying to find an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a surprise for me, a friend helping her with a gift, but the pit in my stomach told a different story. I picked up the iPad. It was unlocked. My hands were shaking slightly as I navigated to WhatsApp. There it was, a chat with Dan. I scrolled up and up. The messages spanned weeks, not just days. Flirtatious banter, inside jokes, references to stolen moments and secret dinners. Then, a picture. It was Emily, in a dress I hadn't seen her wear, laughing, her arm linked with a man whose face was only partially visible, but whose expensive watch and tailored suit spoke volumes. The caption from Dan read, "Missing this already. Next week will be even better." Next week was Valentine's Day. The coffee machine gurgled in the kitchen, oblivious to the earthquake happening inside me. The world outside my window, usually a bustling London street, seemed to blur into an incomprehensible mess. My beautiful, angelic Emily, asleep in our bed, was a stranger. The woman I was about to ask to marry me, the woman I trusted implicitly, was planning to spend our special day, my proposal day, with another man. The betrayal wasn't just a sting, it was a deep, festering wound that had been there for weeks, maybe months, and I hadn't even known. I scrolled further, trying to find concrete proof of what I already knew, and then I found it. A picture of them kissing, taken in what looked like a plush hotel room. My breath hitched. It was undeniable. My world shattered into a million pieces right there on the living room carpet. I didn't wake her. I couldn't. I felt a cold rage begin to set in, numbing the initial pain. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to wake her up and throw the iPad in her face. But something stopped me. A flicker of something. Maybe self-preservation. Maybe a nascent desire for something more than just an explosion. I carefully placed the iPad back on the table, trying to make it look untouched. I then retreated to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, trying to compose myself. I looked in the mirror, and a stranger stared back, eyes hollow, jaw clenched, a raw, primal hurt etched on his face. I managed to go through the motions of our morning routine, though every word she spoke felt like a lie, every touch a violation. She chatted happily about her day, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I nodded, mumbled, forced a smile that felt like sandpaper against my skin. The Lake District trip, the ring, the proposal, all of it now felt like a sick joke. That day at work was a blur. My mind kept replaying the images, the messages. The feeling of being so utterly fooled, so completely betrayed, was suffocating. I couldn't focus. I couldn't even pretend. I ended up leaving early, feigning a headache. I went to my friend Sarah's place. She's been my rock since childhood, knows me better than anyone. When she opened the door and saw my face, her usual cheerful demeanor vanished. She didn't even need to ask. I just walked in, collapsed onto her sofa, and for the first time since seeing those messages, the cold rage gave way to a torrent of tears. I told her everything, choking on the words, the humiliation burning my throat. She listened patiently, handing me tissues, letting me vent. When I finally finished, exhausted and emotionally drained, she looked at me, her eyes filled with sympathy, but also a quiet determination. "Mark," she said softly, "we need to figure out what you're going to do. You can't let her get away with this." Those words, "can't let her get away with this," resonated deep within me. They were a balm to my wounded pride, a spark to the smoldering embers of my anger. The idea of revenge, cold and calculating, began to form. It wasn't about hurting her physically, or even shouting at her. It was about exposing the truth, about making her face the consequences of her actions, about unraveling the carefully constructed facade she'd built around herself and around us. Sarah, always practical, suggested, "First, evidence. Everything. Screenshot it. Back it up. You need proof, Mark. Otherwise, it's just your word against hers, and she's a master manipulator." Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home. I learned to move silently, to observe, to listen. Emily was still chatting about Valentine's Day, dropping hints about what she wanted, completely unaware that her future was dissolving around her. The hypocrisy was sickening. I found moments when she was in the shower or out running errands to secretly access her iPad again. I took hundreds of screenshots of her messages with Dan. I found his full name, Daniel Sterling. I found his LinkedIn profile, a successful venture capitalist, married, based in Surrey. Married. Another twist to the knife. Emily wasn't just cheating with a man, she was cheating with a married man. The deception ran even deeper. I copied her entire contact list, her calendar, her photos, anything that could reveal more. I backed it all up onto a secure hard drive, keeping it hidden in my office. The more I delved, the more I realized how intricate Emily's deception was. Her calendar, innocently labeled Girls' Night or Work Event, often had a cryptic DS initial next to it, matching appointments in discreet hotels or fancy restaurants far from our usual haunts. There were shared ride-hailing app receipts, meticulously deleted from her primary email, but still recoverable from her cloud backup, showing trips to locations near Daniel's office, or even his home in the evenings. It became chillingly clear this wasn't a sudden lapse. This was a long-term, calculated affair, meticulously hidden beneath layers of lies. One night, while Emily was out at what she claimed was a networking event, I found a small, discreet box in her drawer, a gift from Daniel. It was a diamond pendant, elegant and expensive. The kind of gift you give someone you're serious about, not just a casual fling. My sapphire ring felt like a joke in comparison. It hit me then. This wasn't just physical, there was an emotional connection, or at least a significant investment from Daniel's side. And from Emily's side, ambition. Daniel was wealthy, connected. Emily had always been ambitious, driven by a desire for status and financial security. She often complained about my slow but steady career path, subtly hinting that I wasn't moving fast enough, that I wasn't providing the lifestyle she truly desired. I had dismissed it as playful banter, part of her charming personality. Now, it replayed in my mind as a sinister prelude. The transformation from trust to suspicion was painful. Every affectionate gesture from Emily felt like a performance. Every "I love you" a poisoned arrow. I started to notice how she would subtly gaslight me whenever I questioned her late nights or mysterious phone calls. always turning it around, making me feel paranoid or insecure. "Why are you so suspicious, Mark? Don't you trust me?" she'd ask, her eyes wide and innocent. And I, fool that I was, would always back down, apologizing for my unfounded doubts. The thought of all those times, all those apologies, now filled me with a burning resentment. She wasn't just cheating, she was actively dismantling my self-worth, making me doubt my own sanity. The desire for revenge solidified into a concrete plan. It couldn't be a messy confrontation. Emily thrived on drama, on being the victim. My revenge had to be surgical, precise, and most importantly, it had to expose her for who she truly was, not just to me, but to everyone who mattered to her. Her career, her social standing, her image, those were her vulnerabilities. And Daniel Sterling? He had a reputation to protect too. I started digging deeper into Daniel. He was a prominent figure in the investment world, known for his philanthropy and his seemingly perfect family life. His social media was full of pictures with his wife, charity galas, and public appearances. The hypocrisy was astounding. He also had a track record of unethical business practices, though nothing that had ever stuck. He was good at covering his tracks. This confirmed my suspicion. Emily wasn't just falling for him. She was drawn to his wealth and influence, and he was likely using her as a distraction, or perhaps even something more nefarious related to his business dealings. I confided in Sarah about the extent of Emily's deception and Daniel's involvement. Sarah, with her background in digital forensics, a hobby that turned into a side business, became an invaluable asset. She helped me create secure copies of all the evidence, ensured its integrity, and even helped me delve into some of Daniel's more opaque business dealings. We discovered that Daniel had been pushing Emily to invest some of my money, specifically funds from a shared savings account we had for a future house, into one of his speculative, high-risk ventures. Emily had subtly, persuasively, urged me to transfer a significant sum into an account she controlled, claiming it was for a surefire opportunity she'd heard about through a friend of a friend. I'd trusted her completely and done it. The money was now likely tied up in Daniel's dubious scheme. This wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was financial fraud, a carefully orchestrated plan to siphon off my savings. This revelation solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore, it was about justice. The revenge needed to be proportionate to the damage, emotional, financial, and reputational. My plan started to take shape, a slow, intelligent exposure that would unravel their lives piece by piece. Valentine's Day arrived. It was surreal. I played the part, bought her flowers, cooked her favorite dinner. The whole time, a knot of ice sat in my stomach. She was radiant, beaming, clearly excited for something. She kept checking her phone, texting, excusing herself to take calls. The charade was excruciating. I didn't propose. Instead, I gave her a simple, generic card, which she accepted with a slight, almost imperceptible frown. She had clearly expected more. The sapphire ring remained in my sock drawer. The next few weeks were a delicate dance. I continued to live with Emily, observing her, gathering every last detail. She noticed my quietness, my distance. "Is everything all right, Mark? You seem a little off," she'd ask, her tone laced with faux concern. I'd just shrug, feigning stress at work. "Just a lot on my plate," I'd say, a dark irony in my voice that she thankfully missed. She even started complaining about me to her friends, subtly implying that I was moody and distant, preparing the ground for when our relationship would inevitably fall apart. This stung, but it also gave me more ammunition. She wanted to control the narrative? Not anymore. My first move was subtle. Emily had recently started her own PR consultancy, leveraging her charm and networking skills. She was desperate to land a major contract with a prestigious art gallery that was about to launch a new exhibition. I knew this because she talked about it constantly. I also knew that Daniel Sterling was a significant patron of the arts and had considerable influence with the gallery's board. I used a fake email address and an anonymous tip line to send an email to a few prominent art critics and a respected arts blogger, hinting at unethical relationships between an aspiring PR consultant and a married patron connected to the gallery. I made sure to include just enough information, without revealing myself or Emily directly, that it would raise questions, planting seeds of doubt, the kind of doubt that could cause a discerning institution to hesitate. A few days later, Emily was furious. She'd heard through the grapevine that the gallery was reconsidering their PR options. She blamed a rival firm, convinced they were spreading malicious rumors. She went into overdrive, trying to salvage the situation, becoming even more stressed and frantic. The first seed of karma was planted, and she didn't even know I was the gardener. Next, I focused on the financial betrayal. The money I'd transferred for Daniel's surefire opportunity was substantial. I knew that trying to reclaim it directly would be a messy legal battle, potentially exposing me before I was ready. Instead, I carefully researched the specific venture Daniel had invested my money in. It was a startup focused on a new, unproven, renewable energy technology. Through Sarah's connections, we found an independent financial analyst who had concerns about its viability and Daniel's previous, ethically questionable investments in similar ventures. I compiled a detailed, meticulously sourced dossier outlining the risks, the inflated valuations, and Daniel's history of pumping and dumping similar assets. I anonymously sent this dossier to a few key financial journalists and regulatory bodies, along with a tip about suspicious activity surrounding Daniel Sterling and the particular startup. I highlighted the potential for insider trading and misleading investors, implying that this was part of a larger pattern. Again, no direct mention of Emily or me. Just enough information to trigger investigations and raise a red flag. The impact wasn't immediate, but it was like setting off a slow-burning fuse. Daniel Sterling's name, which usually appeared in glowing articles, started to appear in more cautious, even critical, financial columns. Whispers began in the investment community. His reputation, while not yet shattered, was certainly tarnished. Emily, who had been so keen to associate herself with him, now found herself linked to these negative narratives. She was utterly blind to the connection to me. She complained bitterly about the unfair attacks on Daniel, defending him passionately, completely unaware that she was actively contributing to her own undoing. The emotional toll on me during this period was immense. Living with her, pretending, being intimate with someone I utterly despised, was a constant battle. There were moments of doubt, of guilt, where I questioned if I was becoming as manipulative as her. But then I'd remember the sapphire ring, the lies, the financial betrayal, and the anger would surge, reaffirming my path. Sarah was my anchor, reminding me that justice, not just vengeance, was my goal. "You're not doing this out of spite, Mark," she'd say. "You're exposing the truth, and there are consequences for actions." The next stage involved exposing Emily's social lies. She had a tight-knit group of friends, many of whom were well-connected, affluent women she had cultivated relationships with over the years. She relied heavily on their networks for her burgeoning PR business and her social standing. I knew Emily often used me as a convenient scapegoat, painting me as the slightly boring, predictable boyfriend who held her back. I also knew she was incredibly image-conscious, desperate to be seen as sophisticated, successful, and morally upright. I began by sending anonymous messages from a new, untraceable number to a few of her closest friends. These messages contained carefully selected screenshots of her flirtatious texts with Daniel, photos of them together, and snippets of her complaining about me, all framed as being sent by a concerned mutual acquaintance who had accidentally stumbled upon the truth. I made sure these were just enough to plant seeds of doubt without revealing the full extent of my knowledge. I wanted them to question her, not me. The effect was palpable. Emily started receiving chilly responses from friends, canceled coffee dates, and vague excuses for not being available. Her social calendar, once bustling, began to look sparse. She attributed it to her busy work schedule, or simply friends being busy. But I saw the flicker of anxiety in her eyes. The way she checked her phone more often, the subtle shift in her posture, which seemed to wilt slightly. The irony was exquisite. She was losing the very network she'd cultivated through lies because of her lies. The biggest twist, however, came from an unexpected source. As Daniel Sterling's legal and financial troubles mounted due to the anonymous tips, his wife, Catherine, a formidable woman in her own right, started asking questions. She was a respected lawyer and not one to be easily dismissed. Through some judicious anonymous digital breadcrumbs, Sarah and I ensured that Catherine found some of the evidence I'd collected, not of Emily, but of Daniel's broader pattern of philandering and his shady business practices, some of which directly implicated Emily's name in superficial ways, like joint appearances at events or shared investments. The details I provided subtly suggested Emily was not just a mistress, but perhaps an unwitting or even willing accomplice in some of Daniel's less savory financial maneuvers. I didn't have to explicitly state it. I just presented the circumstantial evidence. This was key. It shifted the narrative from Daniel is cheating to Daniel is entangled in financial misconduct with a much younger woman who might be benefiting from it. This was devastating for Emily, because it linked her directly to the very thing she was trying to avoid: public scandal and financial impropriety. The storm broke in earnest about 3 months after Valentine's Day. Daniel Sterling was formally investigated for financial fraud and insider trading. The news hit the papers, splashed across financial sections. His carefully constructed image began to crumble. He was forced to step down from several high-profile boards. His wife, Catherine, filed for divorce, citing infidelity and financial misconduct as grounds. The whispers about Emily, now amplified, became open discussions. Her name, once whispered in connection to new opportunities, was now mentioned with a sneer. Emily's PR business suffered immediately. Her existing clients, wary of associating with someone linked to a scandal, started pulling out. New clients dried up entirely. The prestigious art gallery, which had initially wavered, now definitively cut ties, issuing a statement about upholding ethical standards. Her social circle completely evaporated. The friends she'd used, the ones she'd gossiped with, now avoided her like the plague. She called them, texted them, but they either ghosted her or gave cold, formal responses. Her entire life, built on appearances and manipulation, was collapsing around her. I remember the day she confronted me, ironically, the day Daniel Sterling's financial firm was effectively dissolved. She burst into the apartment, her face pale, eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and fury. "Mark, did you know about this? About Daniel? Everything's falling apart!" she shrieked, clutching her phone. I stood calmly in the living room, looking at her, seeing her for the first time without the veil of my own love and longing. "Know what, Emily?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "That your millionaire boyfriend is a fraud? That he was using you to push his shady investments? That he was already married?" Her jaw dropped, the color drained from her face. How do you know?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Are you behind all this?" "Behind what, Emily?" I countered, stepping closer. "Behind the truth finally coming out? Behind the consequences of your own choices? Do you mean me revealing that you were cheating on me for months, planning to spend Valentine's Day with him while I had a ring in my sock drawer, ready to propose? Or do you mean me revealing that you manipulated me into investing my life savings into his fraudulent schemes?" Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, a lie, a way to spin this. But there was none. That's not fair, Mark," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "You don't understand. He promised me things, a future. You were so stuck in your ways." "My ways?" I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "My ways of being loyal, of saving for our future, of trusting you implicitly? Is that what you mean by stuck?" I pulled out my phone, opened my gallery, and showed her a few of the hundreds of screenshots I had. Her messages with Daniel, the pictures, the incriminating calendar entries. Her face crumpled. "It's all here, Emily. Every single lie, every stolen moment, every manipulation. I have it all. You, you betrayed me, she cried. But the conviction was gone from her voice, replaced by a desperate, childish wail. I betrayed you? I scoffed. No, Emily, I exposed you. You betrayed yourself. You betrayed us. You tore down everything we built, not with honesty, but with deceit and greed. And now, you're facing the consequences. Karma, wouldn't you say? She broke down then, sinking to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. But there were no tears of remorse, only tears of self-pity, of a carefully constructed world crumbling around her. She was mourning her lost opportunities, her shattered image, not the destruction of our relationship. I moved out that day. My bags were already packed, hidden in Sarah's car, waiting. As I walked out, leaving her amidst the ruins of her lies, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. There was pain, yes, for the Mark who had been so naive, so deeply in love, but there was also a profound sense of relief, of liberation. The weight of her deceit had been lifted. The truth had been revealed. In the months that followed, Emily's world continued to shrink. Her PR business went bankrupt. She lost her apartment, unable to afford the rent on her own, and eventually had to move back in with her parents, a significant blow to her image-conscious ego. Her carefully curated social media presence went silent. The last I heard, she was struggling to find any meaningful work, her name forever linked to Daniel Sterling's scandal and the whispers of her own duplicity. Daniel Sterling, for his part, faced legal consequences, significant fines, and a severely damaged reputation, losing much of his ill-gotten wealth in the divorce and legal battles. His arrogant, smooth exterior was publicly stripped away, exposing the opportunist beneath. My revenge was complete. It wasn't an explosion of anger, but a slow, intelligent burn that systematically dismantled the edifice of lies she had built. It was mostly legal, leveraging truth and evidence to expose manipulation and fraud. It was calculated, yes, but it was also a quest for justice. I didn't dance on her grave, metaphorically speaking. The satisfaction wasn't in her suffering, but in the restoration of balance, in the knowledge that her actions had real, tangible consequences. The broken trust was mended, not by forgiving her, but by acknowledging her for what she was and moving on. I learned a lot from that betrayal. I learned about my own strength, my resilience, and the importance of truly seeing people, not just the image they project. Sarah remained a steadfast friend, reminding me that even in the darkest moments, there is support and a path forward. I eventually sold the sapphire ring, not out of bitterness, but as a symbolic act of closure. That chapter of my life was over. The pain lingered for a while, a phantom ache, but it slowly faded, replaced by a quiet strength, a renewed sense of self-worth. I was betrayed, yes, but I rose from the ashes, and in the end, the truth revealed itself, setting me free.